Yeah, we're going to, thanks for joining everyone. We're going to start in 2 minutes just to leave some more people time to join. But thanks a lot for joining. As you might have seen, there is a clash with a plenary call at the same time. The plenary has been added onto our agendas yesterday, so that's unfortunate. And yeah, um, but thanks for choosing that call. And You'll receive the notes of the plenary anyways. And if you have people that who are doing the other choice and who are attending the plenary today and not this call, we are recording the call, so we will be able to share the content of this webinar with everyone um, later. And 1 more minute and we will start.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Moss. Sorry.
no, I was going to say you can introduce yourself in the chat. Maybe that's what you're going to
Same
say, Danny.
thing.
Okay.
Same thing.
Yeah. And we can start. Okay. So hi everyone. I'm Nico with the Tidal Collective, and we are supporting the Fossil Fuel Treaty team with distributed mobilization on the Santa Marta Conference. I'm just going to say like a few words of intro, then pass it on to Amelie, my colleague at the Tidal Collective, and then we'll leave Danny and Melike from the Artivist Network run this webinar. Um, First, thanks a lot, Zoe, for setting all the tech infrastructure for this webinar and for waking up so early to be with us. Thanks all for joining. As I said, despite the unfortunate clash with the DPJ Can Space plenary session happening right now. So as you know, we've developed a process for distributed activities around the Santa Marta Conference so that we can expand and extend the Santa Marta Conference both in time and space. And the idea is to organize mobilizations and activities around Santa Marta wherever you are. And so this webinar is meant to support you in, getting even more creative than you already are, or equipping you with some ideas if you're already very creative, so that whatever you will do will be more visible, more appealing to people. Um, and there are already quite a lot of activities that have happened. There will be more activities in the near future. And by activities, we mean local assemblies, as well as more um, like mobilizations as we often see them, so marches, protests, actions, uh, and all these activities intend to help us build a fossil fuel phase out from below and to support the efforts um, towards a strong fossil fuel commitment in Santa Marta and in supporting also the fossil fuel treaty as a vehicle for this fossil fuel phase out. And if you haven't registered your activities already on the Fossil Free Rising website, please do so. So fossilfreerising.org. I'll share the link on the chat in a bit. So there is a map of activities that you can use to register your activities, and then people can also RSVP to, show interest in joining your action, and then we can share with you the emails of the people who have registered for these actions. Um, and there are also some resources on the website, and Amelie is going to say a few words about it. So over to you, Amelie.
Thanks, Nico. Yes, hi, I'm Amélie. I've been together with Nico. I've been supporting the treaty campaign and the Santa Marta organizers in the development of this distributed action wave. So yeah, thanks to Zoe, we have a great website I can see that she shared the link in the chat if you want to go and have a look. There's the map. You can see that there are already dozens of activities scheduled. Some took place already, and there are even activities scheduled for after Santa Marta itself. So feel free to contribute with anything you plan to organize that you think is a contribution to this worldwide process. You can find in the website some resources also to support you developing your own action in your own context, with the idea really to take into account where you are, the needs of your movement and the context, the local context that you have to challenge. So we are here to add, beyond these tools. You can reach out anytime, of course. This webinar is really a great addition, I think, to this toolkit that we developed, and it will be sent very, very soon. We are just adding the last items in the document, and I think you should have it by the end of the week. And thanks, of course, to Melike and Daniel to be with us today. And over to them.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Danny. I'm one of the coordinators of the Artivist Network, and I'm based in Budapest with, he, him pronouns. Melike, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, everyone. I'm Melike Şiher from Turkey. I'm an artivist and digital activist. Super excited to meet you all today. Back to you, Danny.
Thank you. I'm going to be leading this session mainly today, and Melike is as a background support at the moment. So just to kind of run you through the call or like the webinar's structure. So I'm going to start with a quick kind of presentation of examples from allies and from our work, which have been like successful actions for different kinds of causes and campaigns. And then we would then separate into breakout groups, and kind of like based on a few questions which we would share with you, you would kind of like host a little brainstorming, and maybe you can also like identify some gaps and like share your plans on what you're planning to do. Don't let my tactics limit you. There are so many things which you can do, but I hope that this will inspire you in case you were looking for some creative inspiration. So I'm going to share my screen. Can people see it?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
Perfect.
we can.
Great. I would like to start with a quick introduction to our collective. So the Artivist Network is a collective of artists and facilitators, and basically we're trying to build a bridge between activists and artists and kind of introduce and bring creativity to the movement. We're experimenting with lots of different kinds of tactics, and we're working with lots of artists and activists all over the globe. So I'm really happy to be here, and thank you so much for making the time. I would like to start with something which for us was kind of like an essence on like how to introduce creativity into movements, and this was through art spaces. So these spaces are kind of like a really simple format and are really great for movement building, since basically, like, you know, if you're holding an assembly or any kind of conference, there's usually kind of some sort of space where you're able to kind of like set up a few tables where people can come to create together and kind of like prepare for an action, prepare for a mobilization, or kind of like anything which you want to do. This is like a great space for people to meet, for people to talk, listen to good music, and build alliance and networks. We saw it as like a really useful way for people to learn kind of like simple tricks on how to create great visuals, and also how to mass produce for something bigger. Just kind of like what can you make in these spaces are like flags and banners. You can build any kind of installation or props which you need. And there's really no limit to what sort of mediums you can paint on. I think that really your imagination is what can only hold you back. As you can see, like I just brought a few examples from light banners to like normal traditional banners through like even painting onto parachutes. And yeah, we really see it as like kind of like an essential way for people to start creating together. And here, like there's really not much need besides like somebody going up to pick up some materials, covering the space, and then like someone having a great playlist. And it's like, it's really useful if you have an artist on board who's able to kind of hold down the space, make sure everybody feels comfortable, and that people don't leave their mess behind. Something which is like kind of like came out from this, and for me is one of my like superpowers, is kind of taking like the tricks from the street art movement and implementing that into murals and community murals, basically, which just means that it's not an individual painting, but it's someone facilitating a painting and then a community creating together. We've kind of just like seen it as like it doesn't certainly need to be on a wall. It can be anything from, like a backdrop for your protest on the stage, or, it's also something great which you can leave behind after your action and will speak for your cause for the long run. And it's like it's much easier than you would see it. Like the way we do it is that really we have a few tutorial videos which I will share with you, like using stencils, pasting posters, just like kind of like just playing a little bit with like paint rollers and brushes to kind of create textures and effects which you would think would take ages to learn. This is just an example, as I said, that like, it doesn't certainly need to be on a wall. This is like at the protest for Fridays for Future in the Czech Republic, and we painted this mobile mural together, which then was used as their backdrop during the protest. This is a mural we painted together with Roots, which used to be a project of Greenpeace. And this is a mural we painted for a tutorial video on how to paint a community mural. So you can see that on all of these, like all of the elements which are used here are not actually needed to be painted freehand. So there's really, really easy techniques to use this, which are from like different programs to print large images in a cheap way to, just cutting slices out of paint rollers and just playing around and kind of creating freely. So everybody who took part in painting this mural, for example, never did this before. So it's actually really kind of like empowering for people to then be able to take action alone in their communities as well. Yeah, and then there's a much more elevated version of this, which is these like street murals, which are from a bird, which have a great effect from a bird's eye view. This was painted by Fridays for Future, and as I know, and Nico, you can even correct me if you want, they basically painted this as like one of their first ever community street mural paintings based on the tutorial from David Solnit. So here it's really kind of like somebody needs to like sketch and then the community fills out the painting. And it's a really beautiful and powerful way of creating public art. And there's also like a lot of ways you can kind of play with this, since there is like, you don't actually need to use proper wall paint for these. You can use chalk paint. And by using that, you're actually able to escape a lot of like legal consequences if you didn't have time to actually get permission to create this. So it's, obviously there's a lot of different aspects and a lot of logistics to take into consideration when you're doing one of these actions. But, you can see that how powerful it is and how beautiful. So maybe it's actually worth the time if you have someone who understands how to hand in proper forms for permissions and so on. And for the next topic would be brandalizing and subvertising. So sometimes companies decide to kind of give you their branding for you to play around with. And like with subvertising, this is when we kind of talk about advertising spaces being taken over with guerrilla tactics and guerrilla advertising. So you can see that like people playing around with the BMW branding, like people changing bus stop ads, for which there is some tutorials online. And you can see that this is actually a much less organized way of doing it. It is a really simple way of ad hacking something which was meant to be a huge campaign, and it's really like you don't need to do 1,000. You don't need to change the ads in 1,000 bus stops. You need to find one space where you're able to just change a little detail, which then suddenly is your perfect image, and you're able to circulate it. Because sometimes actually one image is able to carry the story through the online world, since now not everything is based on spread of the word. This is a kind of like a different form of kind of elevating this kind of like playing around with public space and with photography, which is done by an artist called JR, and it's on the US Mexican border. And obviously it's done with permission, but I wanted to kind of share it as kind of like a beautiful example on how to play around with objects and with kind of like space. This example is really nice because I kind of wanted to highlight it since it really involves the community. As I said, I will share kind of like really easy and cheap ways on how to be able to make actions like this. But here, this is kind of like showing the faces of the community in an artistic way. And I just kind of think that kind of like photography and people giving their face to a cause is sometimes really effective and powerful. So continuing, I would like to share some examples from performative actions. These are our fire dresses, which we've been using at COP. And kind of the whole idea of performative actions is not only that, you don't need to be a performer, you don't need to be an actor to be able to do these. Sometimes your presence is more than words. And here, the way we used these dresses is that people who were attending the COP in Dubai, like kind of like volunteered to wear these dresses, and we just slowly walked through the conference. And just by we were not shouting, we were not chanting, but just the simple presence of people with some powerful prop was really people were really interested in it, and it's a really great way to start a discussion. Here's another example of that. But obviously here we did make some noise, as you can see that we had some music as well. More examples, like this is from the COP in Egypt. This is like a reparations action, and as you know, there were so many restrictions in those years that actually using kind of like more theatrical methods sometimes were more useful and more successful than trying to create disruptive actions. And one more example from this action. And yeah, here you can see like a great example of a human banner, but also kind of elevated with using umbrellas to kind of make the words themselves more readable. As you can see that at this action, which was done by Fossil Free Culture, there's like not so many people to be able to form thick words, but actually using the umbrella, they managed to create a really coherent line for the words. So you don't always need 1 million people to create one of these. Sometimes it's enough to just have a great strategy for it. And this is also an action done by Fossil Free Culture, where they're in the Van Gogh Museum, and they were pressuring the Dutch, basically like the Dutch cultural ministries and art institutions to break ties with fossil fuel companies and not accept any more of their funding. And these actions which they did were basically really simple clothing, which is not which doesn't make when you're entering, nobody actually thinks that you're going to do something. So kind of these simple but extremely powerful actions of people just standing and pouring oil onto their dresses actually did manage to create, after several actions, that the Van Gogh Museum did actually withdraw their agreement with Shell. And yeah, and for another form of creative interventions, this is a tactic which we've been working on for quite a while. They're guerrilla projections, which means that basically we use a projector to project onto strategical buildings. And I wanted to bring you this example because it's one of my favorite examples. It's this action was done at the COP26 in Glasgow, and it was done by the Gastivists, where they projected onto the building of the COP. And in most situations, what it would be is that since like projection actions are usually kind of you do your projection, you take a picture, and then you go. The difference in this situation was that they had another technician on the other side who was actually projecting onto the UN. So the next day, like because of the reaction from the technician, the activists declared victory in a light battle on the COP venue. So since it was really unexpected, the projection artist working for the UN tried to somehow like disrupt the wording of what the Gastivists were projecting, and it just turned into this whole war on kind of like trying to change colors, trying to change words, and then you can see that actually the UN projection artist put go away, go away, go away, and the UN actually had to come out and say that this is not an official statement from them to say that the response is not authorized by COP26. So sometimes even an action which is supposed to be silent can draw a reaction, which then actually blows up your whole messaging and your whole action, and then it can make the news as this one did. This projection was done in Italy during the Gastech conference, and it was really successful and powerful action. It was done together with Scientist Rebellion with kind of like more performative disruptive action as well. This is in Budapest, and kind of like is trying to call out the government to kind of like to not accept any more Russian gas, and to kind of understand that how, like basically this is during the Russian and Ukrainian war, it's still ongoing, but this is the way, like, when you look at a tactic on how you can actually use a strategical building which you can project onto, but with the picture, when you actually use it for social media, if you we put the hashtag of the Budapest Parliament, which is actually used by millions of people who are tourists. This actually shows up in the feed of people who would normally never get to see actions done by our allies. And this is an immediate reaction done by an artist group in Hungary, which is just a reaction on the next day when the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine. So I just wanted to run you through these tactics very quickly, and I wanted to just reinforce that what could you do, as groups who are kind of planning actions all around the world, and how could these tactics benefit you? So one of these things is you can set up an art space, and maybe you're just preparing for a photo shoot with the people who have attended. So with a limited space and with a great visual identity, you can print t-shirts and flags as kind of a community building program. And you can be as sexy as this mock-up I found on the internet. Thankfully, the visual identity for this campaign is really beautiful and is actually already stencils. So it means that you're able to print these and cut them out and then paint them onto fabric. And you can use it as decoration for the flags. You can add your own slogans, and it's actually a very simple and really fun way to kind of like create visual coherence when you're doing a group photo. The second is that you can paint a community mural together. And here's another beautiful mock-up, which I found on the internet. And you can see that, just by kind of scaling up some elements and adding your slogan, you're actually able to create really easily done and really powerful murals. You could project onto a strategical building's wall, illustrated by this beautiful stock photo I found on the internet. Obviously for this one, for doing these kinds of actions, you need a little bit more technical knowledge, and you do actually need some technical equipment. If you're in Europe and you're thinking of doing one of these, feel free to get in touch with us. We do have an activist projector which is traveling around. And if you're in other parts of the world, feel free to reach out with us and we will try to connect you with the right people. And you could paint a street mural together, which is again illustrated by a beautiful mock-up I found on the internet. So yeah, this is most of the tactics I wanted to share. And just as an addition, actually, I saw some great examples of this for some people, is that you can actually create a rolling action and go around and stand at strategical spaces in the city so that you could rent a van and you could actually I'm not saying that you should paint the side of the van, but for example, you could put your own posters or your banner on the side of this van and stop in strategical spaces and do photo shoots. So I just wanted to add this as we have never done this, but I have heard that this is actually a really great tactic as well and quite low effort. So yeah, this was my little presentation, and I would like to open up for some questions if anybody has some. No questions? That should be fine. In this case, for the next part of the webinar, I would like to break you up into breakout groups, into working groups, and you're going to have half an hour where you're able to kind of discuss your plans and kind of like share the tactics which you liked from this presentation or something which you're planning to actually use during your assembly or during the action or the mobilization you're going to do. There will be 3 questions.
I'm sorry.
Hello?
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Melanie in Freeport, Texas, U.S. I wanted to ask real quick about the murals. I'm sorry to interrupt. But are they permanent murals you paint or temporary ones that are painted on paper?
I think that there's many ways to kind of look at how you're painting a mural, and it really depends on like, are you specifically asking about the street murals, like the one which is on the concrete or the ones which are on the wall?
On the wall.
Well, on the wall, like you are able to actually buy chalk paint and so on, which is able to wash off. And actually also if you're like doing it without permission, you're able to kind of like spray it. And if somebody tells you to get rid of it because you're caught in action, you would be able to wash it off. But on the other hand, what we've kind of seen is that a lot of times actually people in the community are really open to have a mural painted on their wall. I don't know how it goes in Texas, but for us, it has really worked to actually just talk to the community and ask people if they would be interested in having some beautiful art on their wall. So I think that there is so many ways to approach it.
Okay, on private property, not public property. In the U.S., we would get in trouble if we painted a mural on the public property, but we do. But anyway.
Well, I mean, you can always try to speak with like local governments and try to get permission. And I think that otherwise you can also just take the risk. Sometimes if you find a really abandoned wall which nobody cares about, you might actually be able to get away with it. But I'm not inspiring you to do illegal things because we're being recorded.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love the murals in Berlin when I got to go there a couple of years ago. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, of course. Of course. Thank you for your question. Anybody else have any questions? I will take the silence as a no. And how many people are we? We're 21 people. Okay, then I would like to ask Zoe to please create 4 breakout rooms. And then I will come in and share this document with you, which you will be taking notes in. Or actually, no, sorry. Maybe it makes more sense for me to share my screen first again and explain the questions to you. Just 1 second. Whoops, I'm sorry, too many things in the way. How do I get, okay. So you're going to be put into breakout groups, and so you're going to need three roles. One of them is a facilitator, a note taker, and a timekeeper. I have added my slideshow here, as you can see, as a hyperlink, and then I also shared some useful links in here, which you would be able to refer to if you're looking for inspiration. So you'll have 10 minutes for each questions, and then kind of like I was hoping that you would kind of like share your plans between each other on what your kind of ideas are. Of course, don't share any sensitive information, but kind of share maybe the methodology and the techniques which you're planning to use in your actions. And then you would talk about how maybe if you haven't thought about any creative element yet, how could any of these tactics support your action or your assembly or mobilization? And then here you can also talk about what do you imagine as logistics, and how could maybe you can support each other in identifying gaps. And then also, which is important already, is that who is your target audience, and what's your point of action? What sort of action are you doing? Is it a disruptive tactic or a network building tool? Is it a mobilization? So I mean, you're going to have half an hour for this, and then I would like to all bring you back, and maybe one person could share for a few minutes on what you found useful, and maybe what sort of plans you have. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. And Zoe, can I ask for some help?
Yes, I'm about to open the breakout rooms.
And are we able to randomly assign people into breakout rooms?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. So everyone should get a pop-up to join a breakout room in just a second. And if you have any issues joining your breakout room, you can let me know and I can move you there.
Thank
Okay.
you.
The rooms are going to open now.
Think there is only one person in the room in room 4, so maybe we should move that person to one of the existing rooms.
Okay, I can move them to room. Perfect. And both of you should have permission to move about the rooms, I believe, as well, if you want. I'm not sure if you
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll definitely join a room.
Okay, cool.
And then I think someone can just message me when you want them to close, but it looked like after 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
It said
24.
half an
Yeah.
hour, but
Half an
I think it's
hour.
going to be it might be shorter. So, do you want us to message you on Slack or here on Zoom?
Either works.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great.
See
And
you.
I'll be here if anyone else joins in and I can send them to a room.
Okay,
Thanks,
wonderful.
Zoe.
Room 4 is empty. Okay.
There was one person in there, so we moved them into another room.
That's okay. That's okay. See. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I'm wondering if because I had to look at the documents and maybe it would be more useful to kind of like maybe we will send out to you like a useful documents package. And I just wanted to give one correction about I didn't see the question about like kind of like sharing more affordable strategies on how to use this. And I wanted to say that I really think that kind of like the actions which I kind of shared as an example, they were really ambitious actions. But yeah, like when you set up an art space and kind of if you're able to kind of get like basic colors of paint and some textile. And also, like, you know, when I say print t-shirts, you don't need to get new t-shirts. Like, I think that you are really able to create beautiful art from what you have. And even when you think of the idea of like, depending on where you are, but, you know, you can also create a mural, like, you know, kind of using, like, you know, if it's not on concrete, you can also kind of create art in sand or anything. So I think that there's definitely lots of other ways to create the examples of what I've made. And yeah, I think that there's definitely like, you know, obviously like the projection tactic, it's something which does require a bit of a budget and a bit more technical needs. But yeah, I think that the kind of like the other ones, especially performative actions, they require more practicing and less budget, I think. And song is the same. So yeah, I'm wondering, does anybody have any questions or something they would like to share before we close the call?
Penny, on that, maybe if I may just add that there is a tiny, unfortunately, yet a pot available for small grants. So if you are organizing an action somewhere and you need some financial support to, you know, buy materials, rent a space or whatever, then you can reach out to us. For instance, using my email that I'm typing in the chat, and we will see how to try and support you. There is not a lot available, so you know, no big promises or whatever. But yeah, if buying materials in an issue, that's a possibility. Yeah, that's basically around $500 is fairly easy to do. If it's more, then we will need to have a conversation, check if there are no other requests and whatever. But anything that is around $500 should be fairly easy to do.
Wonderful. Everybody take Nico's email address. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you so much for your time and for joining. Soon we will share an email with the useful resources which can support you in making your actions. So I wish you a really nice rest of your day, and thank you so much again.
Yeah, thanks a lot. See you
Thank
soon.
you
Thanks
so
again,
much.
Zoe, for setting this up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Danny
Thanks,
and Melika.
Zoe.
And thanks, you
Take care.
guys.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Everyone,
Bye.
bye bye.
Thank you all.